Hello. I wanted to go ahead and give you a little bit of information about Quiz 1 and Quiz 2. I'm also going to be sending some notes. Remember, you can also find all this information if you go to Course Information, Content, and then on the left-hand side module, Writer's Resources, you're going to see grammar rules as well. So also, if you click on the main page on the schedule, right, for August 31st, it may have already been dismissed, but there's also a link in that. So the calendar often sometimes has a link to the same page. So if you go back to the 28th, you might actually be able to find the link there. So course information, content on the left-hand side, right? Writer's resources. And then underneath that, you've got the grammar rules. And it has the major errors that goes along with the quizzes. And so you can look at the title of the quiz and find it easily that way. So the first two quizzes are about fragments and run-on sentences. So in general, I'm just going to talk about those a little bit. But first, really basically, right, I just wanted to review the parts of speech because so often, and I am going to send notes, you might want to open that and read it, we do things correctly without understanding the actual rules why, right? Why is this actually like this, right? And so one of the things that I like to ask students in a face-to-face class is you have the words, a gang of thieves, right? A gang of thieves. And then I ask, okay, is that singular or plural? What I use is, like he is, or are, like they are. And I'll ask them the question, and half the class will say it's plural, and half the class will say it's singular. Well, it is one gang, right? A gang of thieves is coming. Why, though? This involves the parts of speech. And so you can follow the notes there that I send you. But a noun, right? There's 6 parts of speech. A noun, person, place, thing, or idea. It can either be a subject that does the action or an object that's acted upon. So if he runs, right, he is the subject. If someone hit him, right, in that case, then him or he would be the object because they're being acted upon. So in general, right, the subject acts, the object is acted upon. They could both be nouns or pronouns. The pronoun is something that takes the place of a noun, right, like he, I. We'll talk about that. I think I'm going to do a second video for that one because quiz, I think, 4 deals with that. So I'll make that for you soon. So we also have verbs. Now, the verb, there are 3 types, right? There's action, linking, and helping. Action verb acts. Linking verb describes, like he is sad, right? Sad is a description. It's not actually like he's crying, which would be an action. I'm describing how he is, like he's tall. So linking verbs show that, and they're usually like are or seems or something like that. And then there's helping verbs, like he was going to the store, or he will be going to the store, or he had already gone to the store. Had, will be, was. Those show the tense or the time of an action. And we've got adjectives that describe a noun and adverbs that describe a verb. And usually those end in ly, like he ran quickly. Quickly would be the adverb there. And then the final part of speech is why a gang of thieves is singular. Prepositions, of, with, on, under, around, anything that shows a position, right? And so the object of a preposition is the noun that follows it. An object cannot be a subject. So when I say a gang of thieves is coming. A gang is my subject. Of thieves is a preposition and its object. So we lift them out like they're not even there. So when I make the sentence agree, I'd say a gang is. It's one thing. All right, now to the stuff you'll need for the quizzes, right? So this is about run-on sentences. The very least that a sentence needs is a subject and a verb that agrees with each other. Like he ran. Okay, that is called an independent clause. It has a subject and a verb, and it stands on its own. A dependent clause also has a subject and a verb, but it doesn't stand on its own, right? So after he ran, he was sick, or he puked, or whatever it is that he does. So after he ran, right, you're waiting for something else. Even though it has a subject and a verb, it's not a complete thought. And so these sample sentences in the quizzes will ask you to identify whether it's a run-on or not, right? And so a run-on is where 2 things are together, like 2 independent clauses are just thrown together without punctuation. I love chicken, I love steak. No punctuation. Now, if you have a comma between them, I love chicken, comma, I love steak. This is still a run-on. It's a comma splice run-on. You would need a couple equivalent things to fix it, and unfortunately the quiz asks you often to fix it, and there's 3 main ways to do that, besides a period. One of them, a semicolon, right, a little dot with the comma underneath it, is the same as a period. It joins 2 related thoughts, but you could just put a period in there instead. So it has very little to do with lists. Some people use it that way, but incorrectly, right? Unless it's a very complicated list, which we'll talk about later. But also there's three ways: coordination, subordination, and adverbial conjunctions to fix those incorrectly joined clauses. And so those rules are going to be on the handout that I send you, but also right in the modules there. So the first way to fix it, I need you to know the 7 coordinating conjunctions, fanboys: for, and, nor, but, or, yet, so. So those 7 right there are always punctuated the same way. Okay, it depends where it is in the sentence. If it occurs between 2 independent clauses, that means there's a subject and a verb before and a subject and a verb after. Like, I love steak and I like chicken. The and in there would be a coordinating conjunction. There's always a comma before the coordinating conjunction when it's in between 2 clauses. If it's just a list of action, like for example, I like chicken and love steak. Right? I'm going to use the same examples that are in the handout there. I like chicken and love steak. There would be no comma there because you don't have an independent clause afterwards. There's no second noun or pronoun. It's just a list of 2 things. So once it becomes more than 2 things, then you start to follow the list again, right? I like chicken, love steak, and loathe fish. I don't loathe it, but for the example there, okay? So you would have commas between all of those. So a way to fix a run-on sentence is to put a coordinating conjunction. Another way is to use subordination. Now, I always ask the question in class, where do we put a comma, right? And I usually get where we pause. That's an estimation. That's not a rule, okay? And I'm going to give you an example. I can pause wherever I want, right? Like William Shatner right there in his acting method. So that doesn't mean that that's where you're going to put that particular comma. So the rules involve where the dependent and where the independent clause falls in the sentence, okay? Or if it's extra information or if it's a list or something like that. So there's a lot of specific rules, but in general, the order of the dependent and independent clauses in a complex sentence affects that. So if a subordinating conjunction, that makes the thought incomplete. While, after, although, since, because, if, right? All those things make the thought incomplete. You're waiting for something else. If that comes first, then there's a comma before the second clause, which is independent. So if there is a comma, and this is an example of the sentence, if there is a comma, right, after the dependent clause, comma, then the sentence is punctuated correctly. If there is a comma before, right, or you could follow the rules. If the dependent clause comes first, comma, there is a comma before the independent clause. So the independent clause came second in that. So the independent clause stands on its own, but you have to be able to identify independent versus dependent clauses to fix it with subordination. If the dependent clause comes second, right, there is no comma. So if you switch the sentence around, like you have if at the beginning, you'd have a comma somewhere. If is second in the sentence, you wouldn't, right? We will not pass the class if we do poorly on the test. No punctuation, but a period at the end. If we do not pass the test, comma, we will not pass the class. If you put the dependent element first, you have to have a comma after it where the independent clause starts. Hopefully, that will make more sense when you look at the handout. So while you're listening to me, please go ahead and pull up that information that I sent in the email with the link to this video as well. The third way is the most complex one, the adverbial conjunction. You can fix a run-on sentence with a semicolon, with a comma, and a coordinating conjunction like comma and, by either putting a subordinating conjunction at the start and a comma after that before the independent clause, or just putting the subordinating element in the middle with no punctuation, or the adverbial conjunction like however, nevertheless, moreover, consequently. A lot of them end in ly, but not all of them. There's always a comma after them, and if they are in between 2 independent clauses, there's a semicolon before them. I like chicken, semicolon, however, comma, I love steak. So you would have the semicolon before and the comma after. Now, if you had it in the middle of an independent clause, there's just commas around it. I, comma, however, comma, love steak. And so if you have that, you can still have a sentence joined in front of it with a semicolon. I love chicken, semicolon. So that's there because we're going to join an independent clause. I, comma, however, comma, like, I forgot what I said, right? I love steak, whatever it is, the opposite one there. So you can have 2 things joined together there. I like chicken, semicolon, I, comma, however, comma, love steak. So in those cases, right, the location of the adverbial conjunctions depends on whether there's a semicolon before it or a comma before it, but it's always surrounded by punctuation unless it starts the sentence, and it can. You can start a sentence with however. It's like an introductory phrase. However, comma, I would not pay full price for that movie, even though I enjoyed it. So in that one, I have an adverbial conjunction in the beginning, and then a subordinating conjunction, and even though in the middle. So I know this is going really quickly, so please review those modules and the actual little bit of information, like the cheat sheet for this video that I sent out there, and it should be easier to follow if you're looking at that while I'm speaking there. Okay, so the ways to fix a run-on, which are two independent clauses that are just joined together, right, is a semicolon, a period, a coordinating conjunction with a comma before it in the middle there, a subordinating conjunction at the start or in the middle. If it's at the start, there's got to be a comma somewhere in the sentence, right, like after the dependent clause. And then the adverbial conjunctions like however, where you put a semicolon, however, comma, and then the second independent clause. Does it stand on its own? Now, everything needs a subject and a verb. So if you have a sentence like not me, that's not a complete sentence. It would have to be something like, I am not interested in that. Or, a complete sentence that has the subject like I and am not, or some verb there that agrees with it. Now, one more thing. In English, there is one noun or pronoun. There's one pronoun that is implied that you don't have to use. Spanish is different, right? Where you can just say the verb and you know what they're talking about by the ending of the verb. English has too many regular verbs like I ran, he ran, they ran, like those. There's no difference. If I say ran, you don't know if it's me doing it or they doing it or he doing it. There's no way to know, right? But if I say I am, I'm talking about me. So some of our verbs do that, but not all of them, right? And so you need the subject. The one exception, right, is the imperative voice with you. So if I say run, that's actually a complete sentence because you is implied, right? You run. Shut the door. You shut the door. So those can be independent clauses even when you doesn't appear. So if I say shut the door, it's drafty, if there's no punctuation between them, that is a run-on sentence. You would have to put a semicolon or something like that in between it. So please review the modules, the handout that I'm sending to you that I typed up to go along with this video. If you have any questions or concerns, remember quiz 1 and 2 are due by the 6th, right, at midnight. Okay, so I'll also be doing one for quiz 3 and 4 this week as well. Quiz 3 is almost exactly the same. So really, quiz 4, the pronoun one, we'll talk about that next time. Good luck. Please let me know if you have any questions or concerns.